Y creo que somos poquitas personas, si no sirve el enlace. Vamos a hablar estas preguntas. Nomás si todos pueden decir sus nombres, cuáles son sus pronombres favoritos, los pronombres preferidos, y luego cómo se sienten y qué es una pregunta que tienes acerca de la justicia del lenguaje. Tal vez es qué es justicia del lenguaje. So let's go ahead and unmute ourselves and let's just have a conversation. That's what this is called. So who wants to go first?
Yeah, and since we have such an intimate group, I think it'll be easy for us to just unmute and hear our beautiful voices. How about that?
I agree. Does anybody want to go first?
Hi, this is Padma. Thank you so much for bringing this program to us because I am really fascinated by the concept of language justice, where when I first experienced it, I just thought this was the most beautiful thing because when the presentation is going on in one language, simultaneously, the interpretation is going on. So all of us can follow the presentation at the same time and not have to wait for some interpretation to follow later. And so what I found from being part of that experience is everyone had a chance to give input at, almost it really did not do less of or more of. It was like everyone had the same space to give input. So that was what stood out for me in regards to language justice. And coming from India and having two moms whose primary language was not English, I could see how much they struggled when they were not included in the main language stream as the children started growing up and going to school. So I really believe that language justice really helps bring that connection in a very powerful way. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Padma. I think our conversation is over. No, just joking. That was so insightful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm going to share. Mi nombre es Paola y mis pronombres son she, her, ella. I use them bilingually. Y estoy un poquito enferma, así es que por eso voy a participar a través del chat. Y muchas gracias por estar aquí hoy día. Algo que quiero saber es cómo la justicia del lenguaje nos beneficia a todos.
Thank you, Paola. I think, Marilyn, you were ready to speak up. You're muted. I think your microphone is on mute, so can you unmute yourself?
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
So my screen is hung up on that document and I can't get back to the Zoom screen where you can change those things. So anyway, but I can talk. So yeah, my name is Marilyn. I go by Aya or she, I guess. I'm excited. I'm not really tired. I'm excited that we're doing this because I think it's really important. I've been volunteering in Jeffco school in a kindergarten dual language class for about 7 years. I didn't do it this year. But the main reason I did that is, number one, I've been trying to learn Spanish my whole life. I'd say I can understand more than I'm afraid to speak. And the other thing was to encourage children I always told them how lucky they were to speak 2 languages because they go into that kindergarten basically speaking no English at all. And amazingly, by Christmas, I would say like over 50%, maybe 60 or 70 are speaking pretty good English. Of course, they're 5, 6 years old, so it makes a big difference. But I've always thought that language was really important, and it's kind of sad in this country. Most people only speak English, and they should be speaking, in my opinion, at least one more language. So, I think it's important. And, I think it's cool the way this worked, too, that you could switch it over to English, because I really never saw interpretation software working that way. So anyway, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? I think, Robin, you're next.
Hi, I'm Robin. She, her, hers. Feeling good and ready to learn. I would like to know what is language justice, the bare bones of that, and how it is applicable to kids.
Awesome. That is awesome. Thank you all for sharing. We're going to move right along to our next activity. And this activity that we're going to do is really my favorite activity in this training. So let me just gear up for that so that we can be ready. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to do some shared creative writing. We're going to write a community poem, and this poem is called the Where I'm From poem. So you start every phrase with I am from, and I wasn't going to share my poem with you because I've noticed that it takes too much time because we have so much information to cover. But because there's not too many of us, I'm going to go ahead and share it with you. And it's in Spanish. So make sure that you have English interpretation on. And then we'll get started. So, yo soy de Rosalba y Samuel. Yo soy de pozole, huevos estrellados con salsa asada, cebolla y queso fresco. Yo soy jugar lotería en familia con dulces en lugar de dinero, de jugar a los encantados y pulguita. Yo soy de amor eterno por Juan Gabriel, Thriller por Michael Jackson y como la flor por Selena. Yo soy de la casa on Mango Street y los milagros de Jesucristo que aprendí en cada escuelita bíblica de verano. Yo soy de calladita se mira más bonita. Soy de no se pare de la mesa hasta que se acabe todo. Soy hija. Tú eres la mejor. Si alguien puede, eres tú. Nosotras no nos rendimos. Soy de hija. Suma esa panza y camine derechita. Esa frase todavía me atormenta. Soy del olor de lavanda, de fabuloso, de la ropa fresca con olor a sol y de un gran piano antiguo esquinado en nuestra pequeña sala comedor. Soy de aunque no teníamos mucho, vámonos de viaje. Soy nieta de mamá Esperanza, la mujer de don Gil Mauricio, que en los años 60 se vino a vivir a Chicago con sus 6 hijos. Y sin saber leer y escribir, llegó a ser una de las costureras más buscadas en la empresa de Sears. Soy nieta de esa mujer que sin alfabetización lo sabía todo. Soy de un encontronazo de 70 millas por hora, donde quedé sin poder caminar por 4 años. Y a causa de eso, mi hija ahora vive con una discapacidad física permanentemente. Soy de un divorcio. Soy de nuevos comienzos. Soy de llevar todo esto en lo más profundo de mi alma y a la vez compartirlo con toda franqueza al que me lo pregunte. Y ese es mi poema de Where I'm From. Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es que les voy a pedir que ustedes escriban un poema y lo vamos a escribir todos juntos y déjenme comparto mi pantalla. Jennifer, ¿me puedes dar permiso de compartir pantalla? So, while we are waiting, I want you to start thinking about a few phrases that you could use this for. The reason why we do this activity is because we want to connect our stories with each other. We want to connect those phrases, those experiences that we all share of living in this world, walking in this earth. There are experiences that we share that go through a culture, language, religion, ethnicity, gender, and if we can get to that part of our heart where we're expressing what that is, that's where we find what our heart language is. So we're going to play some music, and I'm going to give you about maybe 3 minutes to come up with a few phrases that you want to share on the chat. And then we are going to do a shared reading. So everybody's going to read their portion of the poem that we write on the chat. So we'll give it a couple of minutes. Oh, Marilyn's back. Did that work, Marilyn?
Almost. I'm trying to get back in. Yeah.
Okay.
And Indira, I can't play music while you're sharing. So are you able to play some music on your end?
I can. Yes. I'll just put my phone by my microphone.
Okay.
That's the other way of being DJ in this space.
Every month I learn something new of how we can get something done or break something or try something new.
So some of the phrases that we could use is like, you are your parents, you are from, or I am from my parents' names or significant others, special foods or meals, family-specific games or activities, any nostalgic songs, stories or novels, phrases that were repeated often, the best and worst things that you were told, ordinary household items, and then maybe to finish off, something about I am from. Where do you keep all these things? Maybe write an I am from phrase that shows us or tells us where you keep all these important things or all these important phrases. So we'll give it a couple minutes to work on this.
Oh, thanks.
I should put those in the chat, Indira.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, once you write your phrases, let's go ahead and share them in the chat.
Okay.
Share in the chat. It's going to drive me crazy today.
El que no sabe de amores llorona, no sabe lo que es martirio. El que no sabe de amores llorona, no sabe lo que es martirio.
Give it another minute. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's see what you've written on the chat. So if you want to take a few seconds to just kind of write down your I am from phrases on the chat so that we could create our shared community poem. Okay, we're going to read our poem. And I'm going to ask everybody who wrote something on there to just unmute themselves and read when it's your turn to read. And then we will make sure you have interpretation because some of these phrases are in Spanish. So we'll start with Hilda.
Muy bien. Bueno, yo soy de Doña Socorro y Don Antonio. Yo soy de frijoles de la olla y tortillas de harina recién hechas. Yo soy de hierba anís y manzanas. Yo soy de la huerta y de la pila de agua.
Thank you.
Hasta ahí tengo.
Jennifer?
Okay. I am from exit 9. I am from the number 4 train. I am from PS 6 and from PS 167. I'm from the ocean and from the hot sidewalks of the city.
Thank you. My turn. Yo soy de tortillas, tacos, y tortas. I haven't ate dinner, guys. And Hilda? Oh, no, you already went. Robin.
I am from Wendy and Bob and brother Rob, born in the Detroit, Michigan. I am from Motown and music and moving. I lived in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and best of all, Queens. Now sunny Colorado is my home.
Love it. Thank you. And Paola?
Yo soy de Andes nevados y agua del Pacífico en los pies. Yo soy de empanadas y cazuelas y micros llenas al atardecer.
Thank you. If anybody else wants to share their I am from poet phrase that they didn't type it up, now is a good time. But if not, that's okay. And the purpose of this activity is for us to just realize that when we hear other people's stories, like we could actually imagine it. We could see those places. Like I could really imagine the ocean, the hot sidewalks. Like I could imagine what that looks like and what that feels like. And sometimes our heart language transcends our language barriers. So just really connecting to our heart language is really powerful. So that's the idea. So thank you for sharing this time with me. Next, we are going to be led by Hilda in some movement. So, Hilda, you're on.
Sorry. Okay, so we are going to shake a little bit. So I hope you guys are ready to move our bodies and to start dancing. And I'm gonna keep talking until I can turn on my music So hopefully you can hear it now. Can you hear it? I don't think you can hear it because I cannot hear it. So let me try one more time just to make sure you can hear my sound. Okay, I think I fixed it. I think I know what happened. Okay, so can we please, we know we have a long day and many of us have been sitting all day, so I invite you to stand up. And then we're gonna move our shoulders a little bit and we're gonna start getting ready to dance. And we're gonna dance to this music. Can you hear it? Can you hear the music? No. Let me see what's happening. Technology, right? We love technology. So one more time. Now, can you hear it? No. One more time. And if that doesn't work, we'll just do something with our bodies. Okay. So can you hear it? No, it's not working. Okay.
I'll play the song if you tell me which one it is. Mark Anthony.
Vivir la vida. Okay.
Got it. I will get it going.
Indira is starting to do the music. Let's, there it is. Can you put it closer so we can hear it?
Really close to my mic.
So let's start moving to the right and to the left. Then we go to the bottom. And we put some rhythm in there. Let's move our hands. Woo, yeah, Jennifer. You got it. Yeah, Marlene and Robin. Let's move our hips. Let's move our hips. ¿Y para qué llorar? ¿Para qué sufrir Music and dancing has a really interesting effect on our body. So I invite you to, every time that you start getting tired in your Zoom meetings, just stand up and move a little. Move your hips, move your shoulders, move your arms, and go with the music, whatever it takes you. Woo! 2 more minutes. So we make that blood start moving and we stop being so tired in our chairs. Yeah, Paola. Andrea has rhythm too. Yeah. 2 more minutes. ¿Y para qué? ¿Para qué sufrir? ¿Para qué llorar? Olvidar. Reír, voy a cambiar, vivir la vida. So we're just living our lives. Thank you so much for playing with me. And how are we feeling? Are we more ready? Good. Thank you, Indira.
Muchas gracias, Hilda. Thank you so much. So we are going to come into a part of the presentation where we talk about in order for us to understand what language justice is, we need to understand that there has been language oppression, and what that looks like, and what are the practices and policies in place that have been part of our history that have caused for language oppression to be something that exists, and why it's so important for us to think about what language justice is. So this part is a little heavy, so that's why I wanted us to kind of release some of that energy, and for us to start thinking and trying to put our mind in a place where we're going to learn some parts of life. So I am going to let me see, where is it? Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. And we were going to do this in small groups, but I think that we are in small groups already. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes, that's what we were doing. Or let's go to the next one. So we're gonna read this, and then we're going to talk about language oppression. So, due to forced assimilation, especially around language, communities who are vulnerable to poor health can be subjected to feelings of inadequacy, powerlessness, or excluded in settings that are aimed to improve their health, such as nonprofits and service providers. Language justice, as it relates to racial justice, aims to remove the barrier of language and provide full acceptance and acknowledgement over the whole self for people of color, which allows for full and unapologetic leadership. An understanding of both the power of language, and the ties to racism are crucial in creating an equitable space. It requires an initial discomfort in order to obtain a truly inclusive and equitable space. Language justice challenges the power of structures of boards, executives, and mid-level management. Leadership capacity is built when community leaders are able to share their knowledge in their heart language, not to be stigmatized for their language, and show up in spaces with full validation of their identities. So, this is a history of language oppression. We're going to go through some false assumptions, and then we'll talk about what is the truth. So, let's do the false assumptions first. One of them is that immigrants in the past quickly gave up their native languages and cultures to become Americans. That is not true. The truth is that the United States is now, always has been, and will continue to be a multicultural and multilingual country. Since the beginning, the U.S. has faced issues related to language and cultural diversity, particularly in education. The next assumption that we have here, is that English is the official language of the United States. That is not true. The founding fathers never declared an official language. It was unnecessary because English was already well established as a dominant language, and they respected the diversity among those who had fought for independence. The third assumption is that bilingual education is an experiment that began with the 1968 Bilingual Education Act. That's not true. Bilingual education has been in the U.S. since the 17th century for over a dozen different languages. So let's think about these three groups of people. So we're going to start thinking about the enslaved Africans. They were prohibited to speak their native languages through compulsory ignorance laws. That means that they couldn't speak their own language, but they weren't allowed to learn how to read or write English, which meant that they were really trying to strip people of their pride, history, and purpose. Let's think about Native Americans. They were sent to English-only boarding schools where they were designed to eradicate Native American languages and cultural practices. Children were left unable to communicate with their elders if and when they returned home. Let's go to the next one that says German Americans. There were heavy restrictions that were placed after World War I on the German language instruction, and English proficiency was required for all Germans to become citizens. So we are going to go through this, and I think I am going to make small groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we can make some small groups just so that we can have like a little bit more intimate conversation. I am going to share the presentation with you, just so that you could. Let me see, where is it? And I want to make sure that everybody could open it. Anyone on the internet, copy link. That's what it says. That's what it's supposed to say, right? Anyone on the internet can open with the link. Okay, so if everybody could go, we're gonna be split up into small groups, and we're gonna read usually when we're in person, we post these up on the wall, and everybody gets to walk around and read through the room to see the different slides that we have prepared for y'all. But in this case, I'm gonna send you to a room with another, maybe 2 people or 2 or 3 people, and we could read these together. And then I'm going to pose some questions for you, just so that we could have discussion about this. So, Paola, if you could do us a favor and send us. Was everybody able to open the link?
No, I don't see a link.
On the chat?
Oh, it's on the chat. I have the chat kind of hidden.
I think it starts on page 5, 4 or 5. Or that's, well, probably because we read 3 or 4 of them. So probably page 8. It's going to start with like an image of Uncle, what is he called? Uncle Sam. So it's going to be starting on page 10. So, Paula, if you could send us to our groups. And everybody join the group, and I'll check in to make sure that everyone's good. We'll see you in a bit. I'll give you about maybe 7 minutes.
It looks like everybody's here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we just went through some pretty heavy material, and I want us to think about these questions. I am going to put them in the chat, and let me put them in Espanol, just so that everyone could read those questions. Is there anything that surprised you about that presentation? Does anybody, you could just unmute yourself and we could just have a conversation.
I think what surprised me, this is Padma, and I think what surprised me was that there is this constant efforts to undermine the importance that needs to be given to integrating bilingualism into education. And I think it is very interesting to see how the educational institutions are targeted, almost like, where learning begins, because all learning begins in schools, and how those institutions are targeted to kind of continue to exert that authoritative dominance. So that was what stood out for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Padma. I do want to say that we see how there's a double standard for bilingual kids. There was a meme just recently about Prince Williams and his beautiful wife and their 2 babies. And how it was just kind of bragging how these kids, it was like a magazine photo, and it said that their kids were bilingual, that they spoke 3 languages. And then somebody put right below it, and it showed a lot of little Mexican kids, and they're like, our kids speak 2 languages too, and nobody's praising them, nobody's saying anything, right? Because it's not like being an ESL learner or an English language learner is seen as a deficit and not as something that could be an asset for the child. It's seen as something that's negative. Oh, we need to give more funds to that school, which is not a bad thing. Funds are always good, but they see it as something that is a deficit for the community and not so much something that would benefit the child if they remain bilingual. A bilingual brain is such an amazing brain. There's so much like connections that happen in a bilingual brain, and so much coding and understanding at a different level, that we should be celebrating these kids that are already coming in with the different languages and not seeing them as something that's hurting our school system. So yes, I agree with what you're saying, Padma. So the other question, does anybody else have anything else that they want to talk about with the slides? How did
I had never really thought about, I forget what it was called at the end of the slides, the Black language, I don't know, I would guess I would
vernacular,
call it like slang or something. And honestly, I have to say, I've been kind of judgmental about that. When I hear people speaking that way, all the things it said actually is what I think, that they're not educated, that they need to learn how to speak correctly. Now, I grew up in a family of educators, and it was always pushed on me to use correct grammar. So maybe that's where it comes from. But I know that that some of those people are forced into the diction that we think is right. So that was interesting. It was kind of an eye-opener for me. I thought about it in terms of, formal languages like Chinese and Vietnamese and Spanish. But yeah, that was an eye-opener for me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And even,
I think
go ahead.
Sorry. In both of those examples, it's this idea of that white is white and white English is the norm. Mm-hmm. And that everything else is not norm. So, that the royals, right, being celebrated, they knew English first, right? So, right. So it's coming from that place of like, white is right, and then everything else is not right. And I think it's that same, that idea here that, to sound white is the way you're supposed to sound. And who came up with that? But a bunch of white people. So here we are learning new stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I want us to go through like a breathing exercise so that we could kind of release that and think about what we are going to learn. So I'm going to let Hilda guide us through a little bit of mindfulness, like a minute or two.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that was heavy. So I invite you now to put your feet on the floor. If they are kind of cross, I invite you to put them on the floor if you feel like it's appropriate. And also put your back kind of straight, no lunge like this or completely going to sleep, but kind of in a straight form. I invite you to put your hands either in your lap or in the desk or wherever you feel that they are comfortable. And just if you want and helps you to center yourself and to be here in the moment, close your eyes. We're going to breathe through our nose and we're going to let the air go through our mouth. We're going to do this a couple times while you're listening to my voice, trying to release a little bit of maybe emotions that emerge. Breathing through your nose, letting go through your mouth. Maybe a little bit of judgment or a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of anger. What emotion am I feeling? Gonna Breathe in and let go. Maybe that emotion. Invite you to feel your feet in this moment and feel how they are supporting you, how you are strong. And just pay attention to whatever is coming up without judgment. Just pay attention. If it's a thought, if it's a sensation in your body, or maybe a noise that you're hearing in your room, just pay attention to whatever is coming up. Maybe it's an emotion or a thought. Just let it go, let it come, and let it go. Keep focusing on your breathing for a couple more seconds. Breathe in through your nose. Let go through your mouth. Just remember that we are here in the now. Maybe we have things to do, but we're just paying attention of what is coming up for us. Paying attention to your feet, sensations in our body. We're going to breathe 3 more times through our nose. We're going to let it go through our mouth, trying to make a little noise when we let go. One more time. Through our nose and let it go through our mouth. And when we're ready, we just come up to the room, opening our eyes and continue with this journey. Thank you.
Gracias, Hilda. So we're going to move towards, this is the problem, right? We have a country that has had policies in place that have brought us to where we see language oppression all the time, not just throughout history, but even now. And I want to give you guys a quick explanation on how this works. Has anybody heard of the 4 eyes of oppression? So I'm going to type it in the chat just so you could follow along with me. The 4 eyes of oppression. So the first one is called ideological. So someone comes up with an idea. Say, for example, let's use a gender situation. Women are the weaker sex. And that's the idea that some smarty comes up with, right? And then it becomes, the second one is institutional. They make policies and laws that make this ideology more real. So, for example, who were the last group of people that were allowed to vote in the United States? Women, right? So there was policies in place. There were laws in place that would make the ideology become real. For example, in religion, the women is the women be quiet in the congregation or things like that. So there's things that are said about that makes this ideology real for people. Does that make sense? Are you all with me? Yes. The next one is interpersonal. We see how people begin treating each other when they have an ideology. It becomes a policy or an institutional. And then we see the interpersonal interactions with each other. So we see how women are expected to stay home. In the 60s, women had their role of taking care of the kids, cleaning the house, doing the things. And then even now we see the wage gap, right? That women make less than men. And that's the interpersonal interactions that can happen. The last one, and this one I feel is the most dangerous one, is internalized. We start believing these things for ourselves. We start thinking that it's okay. Yeah, that's true. Well, you know what? Maybe that is true. Maybe I don't deserve that raise. Maybe I shouldn't apply for that job because I'm not worth enough. Maybe somebody else could do a better job. Maybe he would be better at this. And we start internalizing. And they say that's the worst thing, or that what oppressors want to do is make the oppressed look at themselves through their eyes, right? So then we begin believing that this is true. I'm going to switch over to Spanish. So make sure that you've selected your preferred language, especially after coming into breakout rooms. ¿Sí me escuchan en inglés? Are we good? ¿Sí estamos bien? Muy bien. Entonces, cuando empezamos a pensar en el idioma y cómo esto ha afectado a nuestras comunidades, sabemos que había una ideología. El inglés es el idioma que debemos de hablar en este país. Después hacen instituciones, lo hacen una política, una ley, como ciertos estados deciden que van a hacer el inglés el idioma oficial de sus estados. O hay políticas que, pues si han hablado español en la escuela, hay que pensar en la escuela. So, cuando uno registra a un niño en la escuela, te hacen una encuesta que dice, ¿qué otros idiomas hablas en tu casa? Y si tú pones que hablas otro idioma en tu casa, automáticamente te clasifican como un estudiante que está en un programa especial para aprender inglés. Entonces, sin saber qué es el nivel de ese estudiante ni nada, nomás si acaso hay otro idioma que se habla en la casa. Entonces vemos que esas son instituciones, esas son políticas que existen en nuestras comunidades que hacen que sientas tú que el inglés es el único idioma oficial. La manera que nosotros tratamos a otras personas, siempre mi maestro, cuando yo estaba en la escuela, decía, una persona bilingüe vale más. Entonces yo me acuerdo que yo decía, yo tengo que ser bilingüe para valer más. Y me hacía sentir que si yo hablo los dos idiomas perfectamente, yo voy a valer más que una persona que no habla los dos idiomas. Y tal vez el maestro me decía como para animarnos a mantener ese idioma, pero de cierta manera eso me hizo sentirme que yo era más que las personas que no hablaban los dos idiomas. Y eso no está bien tampoco. So hay que pensar en cuáles las maneras interpersonales. A veces la gente dice, pues, ¿por qué no habla inglés? Pues si estamos en este país, ¿por qué no toman el tiempo para hablar inglés? Y siempre se asume que la gente que no habla inglés es porque no quiere, porque hay mucha oportunidad. Les quiero contar una historia rápidamente porque se nos va el tiempo bien pronto. Mi papá era un hombre, mi papá era un pastor de una iglesia y nosotros nos criamos en El Paso, Texas, como a 3 millas de donde está el Río Grande. Y me acuerdo que mi papá tenía una iglesia de como 200 personas y muchos inmigrantes llegaban allí a la iglesia con él. Y él siempre estaba dispuesto a ayudar. Y mi papá, siempre que había una clase de inglés, si habían un nuevo programa para enseñar inglés, había un programa que se llamaba Inglés sin Barreras, había el Pimsleur Method, había Rosetta Stone, todos los programas que uno pueda pensar que te van a enseñar inglés. Mi papá gastó una fortuna en esos programas. Él compraba los libros grandes que decía 5,000 verbos en inglés. No sé si los han visto. Y me decía, Indira, léeme este libro y grábamelo en un cassette. Y yo tenía que leer cada verbo y él los escuchaba en el carro mientras andaba haciendo sus visitas de ministro. Y me acuerdo que mi papá hacía todo lo que estaba en su poder para aprender inglés. Mi papá ahora todavía no habla inglés. Él puede entender, pero si de veras quiere comunicarse, él no habla inglés. Mi papá en los domingos por la mañana iba a la iglesia y yo lo miraba con admiración. Era un hombre de autoridad, de influencia. Se juntaban 200 personas y él podía decirles algo que podían influir en su vida. Y yo lo admiraba en ese momento con su traje, un hombre bien, con mucha autoridad, mucha voz. Pero eso era el domingo. El lunes, que él tenía que entrar a cualquier institución de la comunidad ya sea la escuela, el banco, a llamar a los servicios públicos, ese poder que él tenía el domingo was stripped away, porque él no podía comunicarse con nadie. Él tenía que depender en sus niños chiquitos para que le dijeran lo que estaban diciendo. Entonces, ahí es donde le quitaban el poder. Y yo quiero que pensemos que no es necesario que la gente hable el idioma para poder entrar a las instituciones, para poder ser miembros activos y tener participación cívica en sus comunidades. Quiero enseñarles un poquito más de lo que estamos haciendo. I can't believe how fast time flies when you're having fun. Ok, vamos a ver lo de la justicia del lenguaje. Y, ok, los elementos clave para practicar la justicia del lenguaje es la resistencia de la lengua dominante. Es saber que hablas inglés, está bien, pero estamos en un espacio de justicia del lenguaje y queremos darle a todos la oportunidad de que escuchen en su idioma del lenguaje y que escuchen por medio de la interpretación. Eso causa un cierto nivel de empatía. El otro elemento es la libertad para expresarnos en el idioma que más nos ayuda a conectarnos con nuestras ideas, frustraciones y preguntas. ¿Cuáles son esas frases? ¿Cuál es el idioma de nuestro corazón? El otro elemento es la interpretación simultánea de calidad a los dos idiomas representados. El compromiso y la asignación de recursos, capacitación y resistencia a prácticas de facilitación en el idioma dominante o en la lengua dominante. Y finalmente es la creación de un sentimiento donde es más abierto, donde hay aceptación y disposición de escuchar. So, si nosotros pensamos en cómo podemos llevar a cabo estas prácticas, vamos a poder participar en lo que se llama la justicia del lenguaje y poder promover para que nuestras comunidades puedan ser parte de lo que estamos haciendo, de los lugares, de la comunidad, para que nadie se sienta aislado y poder llevar a cabo nuestros valores de justicia racial, justicia social, justicia para todos, un nivel de equidad que va a hacer que el nivel de entendimiento sea igual para todos. Eso es lo que tengo para compartir. No sé si hayan preguntas o dudas. I'm going to go into English now. Any questions or doubts or anything that didn't sit well with you or that maybe made you think about something else?
I love the story about your dad. And when he went in to the community outside of the church, that he was kind of lost. And that was really nice story. I mean, interesting to see it that way. I wonder why he didn't learn English. I mean, he encouraged his children to learn English, but was it because his brain just couldn't do it at that point in his life?
I think that there is a key time that our brains are adaptable to language, and that's in our younger years. Right. I think that after that, it's just a lot harder. And when I think about my dad, so he carried all the stress of raising 4 kids and putting us through college, and he had to pay rent. And then he carried the stress of all his 200-member church. Like he was always taking care of them too. So I think that when I think about community members in my community, I live in Sheridan. Sheridan's just right outside of Southwest Denver. And I see that a lot of these men are working 2 and 3 jobs to make rent. I see that they are trying to make sure that they provide first and foremost, and perhaps learning English is not at the top of their list and priorities.
Right. I have a landscaper who did some stuff for me last year, and he was telling me how he immigrated here as a child. I forget where he was from, but somewhere in Central America. But anyway, he learned English by not hanging out with the Spanish-speaking kids. He hung out a lot with the Asian kids because they really wanted to learn, but also like watching video games and listening to as much English as he could. And he wasn't a super young kid. I think he told me maybe he was like 12 when he moved here. So, but he has a very successful landscaping business, and, you know, all the guys that work for him that do the work, most of them don't speak English, but they work super, super hard. I don't know how much he pays them, but yeah, it's kind of interesting seeing that. I don't know, just listening to people who have learned another language. Because like I said, I've been trying to learn Spanish for a long time. And I know it's because my mind doesn't work that way. And the kids at the school would say to me, the same ones, I told them I was so proud of them. They'd say, Ms. Haas, you need to learn Spanish. And I'm like, I thought I was speaking Spanish. They're like, no. So that's very humbling to me.
I think there's an age, like if an immigrant child arrives to a country where they are immersed into English through TV and school and everything, before the age of 14, they could actually become bilingual folks. If they come in after 15th, I think that's where it can become a little bit harder. But Hilda, do you want to share something?
Sorry. I just want to agree with everything that you guys are saying regarding age. I also learned English when I was older, and it took me a long time and a lot of effort and a lot of opportunities. The opportunities presented for me to learn English. But what I wanted to say mainly is it is important also to understand the fact that you probably are not bilingual, or that you don't learn another language, or that you don't know how to speak English. That doesn't mean that you are not smart, or that you don't have the ability to comprehend complex ideas. The contrary, and this happened to my son when he was little, and I put in that questionnaire he speaks Spanish at home. They immediately put him in a special room because they assumed that he wasn't smart enough because he had another language that was speaking at home. So I think the lesson that I take from these classes is that we cannot judge a person because they don't speak English or because they're not bilingual. I think removing that ideology from our way of thinking is a first good step.
Thank you for that.
So, Hilda, that I'm just gonna. I always remember Sofia Vergara when she says, "You don't know how smart I am in Spanish."
So true.
I love that.
I think our time has come to an end. Unfortunately, I feel that we could talk about this for another good 20, 30 minutes. We actually do this training for 5 hours. I did one for 5 hours this morning. So we could really sit here and dig deep and really talk about these issues. But before we end, I just want us to close out with a one-word phrase about how we're feeling. And then if you want to, this is just what action step would you take to create a space for language justice? Like, what would you do to make our communities better? And then I'm also going to share with you an evaluation. Thank you, Hilda, for reminding me. I would love it if everybody could just fill out a quick evaluation about how you felt about this training, and give us some input so that we could do this better next time.
And it's in the chat right now.
It's in the chat. I've just put it's a form, a Google form, and it's 5 questions. It'll take you less than a minute to fill it out. So if you could please do that, that would be great. So Jennifer wrote on there, inspired. If anybody wants to say it out loud and just voice your word, or if you want to type it in the chat, I'd be more than happy to read it, or either I will.
I feel very humbled, I think I'm pretty open and accepting, but I feel humbled because I learned some things. So yeah. And guess I'll just continue to try to be accepting of people and understand where they're coming from.
Thank you for sharing. Padma wrote in there, eye-opening and informative. And I keep thinking of the impact of kids when they are treated differently. Mm-hmm. And then Robin shared, I'm learning. Thank you. I think it's a great thing that we continue to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, I want to just thank you so much for being here and having this program with us. Again, since this is now my second time, and I think I could sit through it 5 more and still get new things out of it each time. But Alba, were you going to say something?
Sí, yo me siento reflexiva. Wow, muy reflexiva. Yo soy relativamente nueva en este país y bueno, mi forma de ser es un poco abierta. Entonces, cuando hablo, mi hijo dice cacaraqueas inglés. Y yo digo, ok, pero los de aquí cacaraquean español. Entonces, estamos igual, en la misma tabla, en la misma medida. Yo nunca me he sentido, pero es desde mí misma. No sé si la otra gente me hizo así, pero yo no me lo sentí porque yo cacaraqueo inglés y tú cacaraqueas español. Vamos a estar en la misma. Pero me hace reflexionar muchísimo.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por eso, por ese aporte. So I think that with that, I don't know if there's any last minute announcements, Paola.
Paola. Mm-hmm.
Yes, one last minute announcement. At JCPL, we're very committed to language justice. And I just want to let you know that because of that, tomorrow our Tamales program will be fully bilingual. Not just that, we will also have ASL interpretation at the same time. So we're very proud of the efforts that we're doing at the Jefferson County Public Library to include everyone.
Muchas gracias.
Y gracias a nuestra maravillosa intérprete, Andrea, que hizo un excelente trabajo el día de hoy.
I love it when we have to interpret how good we are. Just joking.
So this is my first time here, and I'm not really sure how I heard about it. But is this like a monthly program that you do, and every month it's kind of different?
Yes. So every month we are offering a conversation. We actually just fine-tuned our dates. We're going to take time off in the summer when we have summer reading, and then generally we would take December and January off, but we already have this planned for December, so I'm glad we were able to keep this. So yeah, check out jeffcolibrary.org for any and all of our programs. These will be on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. February, we're going to talk about how to talk to kids about race. And then I think we have understanding the teen brain coming down the pike, and also mental health issues. So we talk on broad topics, but generally what we feel are topics that we should be talking about in the community, right? So, and maybe challenging topics that are, we might not otherwise engage with our community of people, of our little insular group. So outside of the groups that we surround ourselves with. So that's the goal of these programs. So I'm glad you were.
I have 2 teenage granddaughters. That's why I was laughing. They used to Grammy. Now they're like looking at their phones.
Well, then you should attend the teen program for sure in March. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for finding us. And I hope you'll join us again and spread the word.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And thank you to everybody, Hilda and Indira. So nice to see you. And nice to meet you, Alba and Marilyn. And I know all the rest of you, so I'll see you in meetings.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paola, for all this wonderful work.
Yes.
We'll see ya.
Bye.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, everyone.
Buenas
Good night.
noches.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Happy holidays, guys.